The featured company is a paid client of Proactive Group Holdings, and this recording is disseminated by Proactive on its behalf.
One of the key things was that this had never been drilled before. And even though there have been some small scale mining, and there are three historic mines along a 500-meter trend, but there was really nothing to guide us in terms of where the mineralization was, or how extensive it is.
Great. Welcome back inside our Proactive newsroom. And joining me now is Robert Archer. He's the CEO of Pinnacle Silver and Gold. And Bob, it's great to see you again. How are you doing?
Likewise, Steve. I'm doing well, thanks. Hope you are too.
Yeah, doing very well, thanks. And excited to look at your news out today that you had. You and I have been talking over the last little while that the company's been going through a process of getting things ready for underground mining, and you're at that point now where you feel you're ready to start the actual drilling part of it. So tell me a little bit about where you're at.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Steve. I mean, when we acquired the property, one of the key things was that this had never been drilled before. And even though there have been some small scale mining, and there are three historic mines along a 500-meter trend, but there was really nothing to guide us in terms of where the mineralization was, or how extensive it is, the overall grades, and so on. And so we set about doing a systematic channel sampling program underground, and we've taken almost 900 samples underground, and from that it gave us a very good idea of where the mineralized zones were situated. But because the underground workings are somewhat limited, they can either be totally inside the vein or maybe following along one contact, but you don't know what lies beyond the wall. And so you don't necessarily know where the other contact is, or in some cases where either contact is. So you have no idea how wide the vein is, and how much of it is mineralized. And so the only way to do that is through drilling. But to drill from surface into underground workings, you can appreciate that you can be drilling down into an open space, which can be really problematic for the equipment, and you can lose recovery and so on. So the best way to really do that is through underground drilling. So that's what we had decided to do. But in order to get to that point, we had to rehabilitate the underground workings to some degree, to enlarge some of the spaces to make enough room for the equipment, but more importantly, to secure everything and make sure that that the areas were safe for the workers to work in. So there was a certain amount of preparation work that needed to be done before we could proceed with the drilling. So that's where we're at now.
Yeah, and just so people understand, there's two levels of this of mining, and there's 10 drill stations that are set up, but they go for quite some time underground. So tell me a bit about the two levels here that you have.
Well, there's the principal level where you access, because keep in mind that this is all on the side of a small mountain, and so the workings just go straight. It's just a tunnel essentially that goes straight into the side of the mountain. There's no shafts or anything. You're not going down into the ground that way. So you walk in to the tunnel, and then so that's what we call the main level. And then there's a kind of an inclined tunnel that we call a raise. And so you go up that to an upper level, and it's only about, I believe it's like 12 meters apart between the two separate levels. So then there's another tunnel on that upper level, and so the best way to drill the mineralization in that area is to get right up into that upper level. It's very difficult to drill that from the lower level, even though, I mean, the one advantage of underground drilling versus surface is that you can drill up holes. So I mean, from surface, obviously you can't do that. You're always drilling down into the ground. And but underground you can drill at almost any angle, and follow the vein up and down. So yeah, so we've developed three drill stations. The upper level is not quite as extensive as the lower level, so there's enough space for three drill stations up there, and then seven on the lower level. But the holes will be drilled just in a sort of a fan type pattern, and stay stations only about 12.5 meters apart in the mineralized zone. And then we'll sort of widen, as we come out of the mineralized zones, we'll widen the spacing a little bit because, you have to define where the outer margins of the mineralized zones are. You have to be able to know when to stop. Otherwise you're sending waste to the plant, which is no good. So the program will give us a very good sense of the overall size, the shape, the geometry of the veins, and obviously the overall grade as well.
And so, lastly, while you're doing the drilling part of it, you're going to be working on rehab on other areas that you want to look at as well?
Yeah, so there are 3 historic mines along that 500-meter trend on the main vein. So the nice thing about having those 3 separate veins is that because they're not connected, so once we finish the first one, which is actually the middle one, but then the guys have moved all their equipment out and they've moved over to the Dos de Mayo vein. And so that allows the drillers to move into the central one, the Pinos Cuates, and that's where we're focused on now. So they can get started with the drilling while the miners are completing their rehabilitation on the other mines. So, being able to stage it like that is advantageous because it means that we don't have to just sit back and wait for the entire thing to be finished before we can get started with the drilling.
Exciting times ahead for sure. Well, we look forward to how this is all gonna work out, and exciting times, as I mentioned, Robert. Thanks so much. Good to see you again, and we'll talk soon.
You betcha. Thanks a lot, Steve.
All right, Robert Archer, the CEO of Pinnacle Silver and Gold.
The featured company is a paid client of Proactive Group Holdings, and this recording is disseminated by Proactive on its behalf. It is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, an offer, or a solicitation to buy or sell any securities. Viewers should conduct their own research and consult a qualified financial advisor before making investment decisions. The views expressed are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect those of Proactive Group Holdings, trading as Proactive Investors or its affiliates. No responsibility is accepted for any loss arising from reliance on the information presented.